Hello and welcome to episode 160 of my podcast all about knitting and crochet and my yarn shop here in Wiesbaden, Germany. I'm Kiko and today is October 17th, 2022. Today I'm wearing a shawl and a pullover that I've both worn twice on my podcast before, but I was quite surprised to see that I hadn't worn them together. And the reason I was surprised is that I basically knit them to fit together. Let's start with the shawl. This is the Whirlwind Shawl, and that was, I think it was the first test knit I ever knit. And the first thing that drew me to the pattern was one, the color that was quite similar to my own, but also the shape of the shawl. So it's a bit like a triangular shawl, but it's asymmetric and it has this curve. And because of this curve, you get this end that sort of spirals like this. And it also lies on the shoulders a lot nicer than a typical triangle, which is straight and which tends to slip down the shoulders sometimes. But because of the curve that's in the shawl, it just stays on the shoulders really nicely. And the yarns that I used is the hand dyed yarn is by Drachenwolle, and I had enough yarn to make a pullover and half a shawl. So I first knit the shawl, and the solid color is opal yarn, and I knit those together thinking I would knit a whole pullover out of this color and then I could wear the two together. But then I decided, because I also had this one skein of this color and one skein of this color, I thought those looked together nicely, and I decided to do the pullover in the three colors, but still this middle color and the yarn in the shawl are the same. So I think I can wear them together nicely, even if I combined it with this is it teal color in the shawl, and I combined it with black and white in the pullover. And I like to wear it together, but I hadn't shown it on the podcast before, so that's what I'm wearing today. And the pullover is the It's a pattern by Romy. It's out of her book New Lace Knitting, and I forget what the pattern is called, but it's on my Ravelry page, which is linked underneath the video, so if you want to know, you can check it out. At first I thought maybe it was a bit too short and too tight, but it's not really tight. It's just a bit more fitted than most of the pullovers I knit, but I'm quite happy, and especially with a skirt like this, I think it's a nice combination. And and now I get to wear the pullover and the shawl together. And this is what I mean, that the curve in the shawl means that it really sits on the shoulders very nicely, and I can move around and it won't slide down. But I could also wrap it around more often. I usually do it this way, so the bigger part is on my back, and I can just flip it to the back, or I could pull it round like this. And of course I could put the tip in the front and then really pull it round like a scarf. There's many ways to wear this shawl, and I really, really like this shape a lot. And there's 4 different stitch patterns to keep you interested to make the knitting more fun. But I really like the way she did the increases on this shawl, and I've always wanted to knit another one, maybe with different stitch patterns, but I never got around to doing that. Maybe someday I will. So much for what I'm wearing. Then on to finished objects. There are 3 finished objects this week. There are also 3 new cast-ons, one of which is a finished object, but I'll talk about that in a minute. The first thing I want to show you is the little vest that is done. I used the Cache Silk yarn by Lana Grossa. I only had 6 balls of yarn that I bought once upon a time in a sale. That's why I didn't buy any more. And I knit the pattern from the Coco Knits book by Julie Weisenberger. And it's a really nice book. And the word I was looking for last week, I think, is construction. She has a very unique way of constructing her pullovers and cardigans. And it was really interesting to learn about, or to learn how to do that. Though I only did like fronts and back without sleeves. So most of the garments in the book have sleeves, and they sort of look as if they were sewn in, but they are knitted at the same time. But it's not a raglan shaping. It's really difficult to explain, but they are really nice, and the way she constructs them is very clever. And the pattern I knit is this one. So you can see mine is a lot smaller and shorter, but this is what I was going for. And I thought if I just make it a bit smaller, I should have enough yarn. And I think it's okay the way it came out. If the weather stays this nice, I might wear this next week on the video so you can see it on me. The pattern calls for a very elastic bind off on the bottom of the front and back, but I did a I-cord bind off because I think it sort of fits with the way the edges are knit on the fronts and also on the sides of the sleeves. Yeah, and the special thing is that you start with the back and you do lots of increases, and that's where you pick up stitches for the fronts, and then I knit both the fronts, and then you knit everything together down, and there's obviously some more steps to be done when you knit a pullover. I will knit a pullover out of that book next. I could either do a pullover or a cardigan with sleeves, but I think I'll go for pullover first. We'll see. Yeah, but this is finished. It hasn't been washed yet. I'm still thinking of blocking it a little bit just to get it a tiny bit longer, but I don't want it to grow even narrower. So if I pull it too long, it'll be less wide. So I'll have to see what I do. And because it's a garter stitch, it will grow longer while I wear it anyway, a little bit, but the yarn's not very heavy, so it won't grow too much, I think. We'll see. So that's the first finished object, and now to the second finished object, and that's my second mystery gnome. The current mystery gnome is called Norton. It's the Choose Your Gnome Adventure gnome. It's a difficult name, and I knit it twice. The first one, the little one, I'd already finished maybe 2 weeks ago, I don't know. And now I finished the big, huge one. And that's my big Norton. So it's all finished and closed. And I think a lot of you will probably wonder what I put inside. So the outside is rather soft. This is soft. This is empty. It can still stand up if I want it to. So the yarn is strong enough to have the hat standing up. But I quite like this floppy version. And what I put inside is I had this red like round box. It sort of looked like an apple. And I think it contained something like soap or something like that I got as a gift years ago. And I kept it on my shelf thinking I might use it to put something in, but I never used it. So now this is inside his belly. It's this box that I filled with stones and an old pair of tights so the stones wouldn't rattle too much. And then I put 2 old shirts, like undershirts, sleeveless undershirts, and I put some stuffing in the top, and I put some stuffing around the box so it wouldn't be hard. So what you can feel is the stuffing, and then underneath the stuffing there's the box. And it's fairly heavy because of the stones that I put in. The brim will always want to go up, but yeah, it's the big nose, I think. And I'm really, really happy with him. So he's still a bit squishy, but as I said, rather heavy. You can use him to keep doors open. Yeah, really happy. And just to have a size difference, this is Little Norton. So they're both knit from the same pattern, and it's called Choose Your Gnome Adventure because you can, oh, he's heavy. You have lots and lots of options. So there were 5 different options for the hat. I did the stripes on this one. I did garter ridges on this one. Then for the body, I chose this 2-color pattern for the body. And for him, I chose to do these little stripes that were not in the pattern. but I just didn't have enough of the dark yarn, so I thought I'd just pop in a little bit of the light grey. But I didn't want to do the same stripes as in the hat, so that's why I went for these stripes. And this is why the bottom is light grey, even though that means he might get dirty a little easier. And then for the sleeves, no, for the arms, I chose the 2-color option in the little one. You can't really see it very clearly, but there's a tiny bit of color between the hands and the arms, and I knitted normal hands. And for this one, I went for the 1-color arm, but I did the big hands. So these are more rounded and a bit stuffed. And then there were 2 noses. You could do the round nose or the oval shaped nose. Yeah, and that's those 2 together now. If you're on Instagram, I posted pictures of the 2 and also of the other gnomes that I knit out of this yarn. So they look like a little family. It's quite fun. Yeah, that's this mystery knit along finished. But he's not my October gnome because I started him in September and I want to have an October gnome that I start and finish in October. Haven't finished the pattern that I talked about last week, but I'm still planning. Oh, by the way, I'm planning to use the same green color, but just the green plus some white for the beard. And then I'll knit another, here we gnome again, gnome. I will have to start him this week and then finish it before October is through. So that was the 2 objects that you already know, the projects, and then I started and finished a tiny little project for a friend of mine. These are just tiny leg warmers for a little toddler. So I used this spiral pattern. I used opal yarn, 2 opal yarns held doubled. One of them is was a subscription yarn colorway that's later made it into the I think Memories series. And then I just used a solid purple because it's a little girl. I hope she'll like the colors. And my friend was asked if she could knit those for a colleague's child, but she didn't really feel like doing that. And I said, well, I can quickly knit them for you. So I'll give them to her as soon as possible, and then she can give them to her colleague. So just a tiny in-between project. So these were all my finished objects for today. Then on to works in progress. As usual, I'll start with the socks. And last week I showed you this sock was finished. And now with the second sock, I finished knitting the heel. And again, it's a 2-color. I did the first half of the heel in the colorful yarn and the second half in the dark yarn. And I've knit a few more rounds in stockinette, and then I increased the stitches again so I can have patterning all around the foot. This is what they did in the original pattern. And yeah, so the colors come on. The beginning of the heel is the same. So both start off with the blue, but then this stays blue, and with the first heel there was some pink in there, and now I can just knit as many stripes as I did on this one and still enjoy both the pattern and the colors a lot with this project. So that's a lot of fun to do. I did not continue knitting on this sock couple. Don't know. I kept carrying it around with me because it's a really small and easy to carry project, but then I never got around to knitting on it. Crazy, but that's the way things go sometimes. Then the next pair of socks I'm knitting are the 6-ply socks out of this beautiful colorway for my sister, and I finished knitting the first sock and started the second sock. So maybe this sock is the reason I didn't get to knit on the others, because I really, really want to get those finished as quickly as possible. Yeah, very simple pattern, but I think very nice socks. And then, instead of knitting on the old project, I started another pair of socks, but not just normal socks, but they are color work are going to be colorwork knee-high socks. And the reason I started knitting them is because I got another book from a publisher that I got for free to try out and talk about on the podcast. And it's by Anna Bauer. And her first book is one I already owned. I got that from a friend. It's called Alternate Rebellion, and it has those wonderfully colorful colorwork projects. I think the only thing I knit from that book so far is a pair of mitts where I put giraffes on one of the mitts and elephants on the other. Should be in one of the old episodes. But now I got the second book of Anna Bauer's. It's called Stricken mit Farbe und Fantasie, so knitting with color and imagination. And again, it's full of colorful patterns, but also a bit of the history behind the movement that happened, I don't know how many years ago, but where they sort of started putting political statements into knitting and used knitting to show off their opinions and whatever. But you don't have to do that. You can just use those books as inspiration to knit beautiful things with lots and lots of different patterns. And again, it has a bit of a library of different stitch patterns, but also projects that are in the book. And I decided to do the knee highs. There are normal socks in the book as well that have the patterns only on the foot. But for some reason, everybody's knitting those little dolls at the moment, it seems. But there's a hat. I think that was on the back of the book as well. There's a pullover and a cardigan. There's also mitts again, like in the other book, but of course they're different than in the other book. There's another shawl in the book which changes direction of knitting, and there's a kid's cardigan as well. This is one of the pullovers and one of the cardigans. I think it's basically I'm not sure if it's the same pattern and you just stick it, but it could be. I really like them both too. But what I decided to do is something like this. So these are knee-high socks with many different patterns. They went with a very limited number of colors, so they kept repeating the same colors. I'm not quite sure I'm going to do the same, but those knee-high socks are knit toe up, and the good thing about that is that you can keep trying it on, and the pattern says try them on and then increase your stitch number depending on how many stitches your leg needs. So I really like that. And I decided to use leftover yarn from other projects. I love to use new yarn, but I'm trying to work with my leftover yarns a bit more. So using this as the main color at the moment. I might change that, but maybe I won't, I don't know yet. And I'm using this yarn as the contrast color at the moment. I'm definitely going to change that every now and then, but this is what I have knit so far. So I just did the toe in the main color, and then I'm just going through the book and looking at different stitch patterns, and then just combining them any which way. And I decided to do some of the smaller patterns for the first sock, because right now I'm not quite sure how many rounds I'm going to need until I start the heel. They're knitting a short row heel, which I think is a good idea for a project like this. And with the second sock, I will know how many rounds I knit, and I can then decide to do one of the bigger patterns, like, let me see. This octopus is a really long pattern that needs many, many rounds. The ducklings don't need as many rounds, but they're really, really funny, I think. Just let me see if I can... Oh, these are funny too. So this jacket, you have dancing, or you have women with dresses, or you have this horse pattern. So there are so many fantastic and unusual patterns in the book. That's one of the things I really love about it. Oh, and one project I will have to knit at some point is this skirt. Probably with different patterns, definitely with different colors. But you can see the alpaca is one of those patterns that needs many rows. I could do the bottles. I probably won't do that. But there's something for every taste in this book. So I think it's a really wonderful book. And yeah, I can't wait to see how these socks will come out. And because I haven't made up my mind which patterns to use yet, I have no idea what they're going to look like. So stay tuned. So that's that. Then the next colourwork project are my Latvian mittens. That was the first one. And with the second one, last week I'd only done this first pattern, but now I did the first repeat and a little bit of the main pattern. And now you can see that with this one, the dark blue is the background color and the light one is the contrast color. And it's the opposite from what I did in the first mitt. And here you can really nicely see the difference. And I can't even say which I prefer. I think they both look really nice. And I'm really happy that I did one like this and I'm doing one like that. And I can't wait to have them finished because I think they look really nice together. They look nice with what I'm wearing as well. So yeah, that's fantastic. And I just have to keep knitting. And then I have, okay, I'll do the old hat first and then I'll have another colourwork project. I'm knitting the Poca Poca hat out of my Turtle and Moon book. And that's where I knit the first half of the hat with this rainbow yellow color. And now I'm knitting a second hat out of the mohair silk yarn by Hansa Farm. And it sort of looks as if it was bigger, but it's not really. And then once I've finished that hat, I'm going to pull them one hat inside the other. And so if I wear the mohair side on the outside, this is what it's going to look like. And I've noticed that the rainbow sort of shines through the mohair, which I like. But then I can fold up the brim and then I can have a mohair hat with a rainbow brim, or I can wear the whole thing the other way around and I'll have a rainbow hat with a mohair brim that has the rainbows just sort of shining through. Yeah, this doesn't look like a lot, but it felt like a lot of knitting, but I'll have to do a lot more. I put in a different needle. I bought, a friend of mine ordered these Chaogu wooden tips. Are they wood or are they bamboo? I think they're bamboo, but they go with the Chaogu cables that I already had. So with the mohair silk, I prefer to have these bamboo needles to the metal needles that I had in there before. So that sort of makes the knitting easier, but still a long way to go. And even though I haven't finished this hat, I had to cast on a new hat. And that's because Stephanie Lotvin, who's also Telly Bean Knits, is it her? Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's her. But it's linked underneath the video. It's called Halloween Hat. And it's a new pattern by, pretty sure it's Stephanie Lotvin. And you can get the pattern for, I think, I won't say how much, but it's a reduced price till the end of October. And I don't think you need a coupon code. I think it's just the reduced price for this month. And then she'll increase it once it turns November. And so I thought I'd better start the pattern now and show you in case you want to knit it and you want to get it for the cheaper price. And it has little ghosts, or you could knit hearts, and in between there are skeletons. So these are the lower legs of the skeleton. This is the beginning of the upper leg of the skeleton. And then there are many skeletons and they're holding hands. And there will be some smaller ghosts at the top of the hat in between the skeleton's shoulders and heads. And I thought it's just such a funny pattern. She also designed a cowl with spiders. I did not buy that pattern. Found it really hard not to buy it, but I didn't. But it's also reduced, I think, for the whole month of October. So go check it out if you're interested in that. But I just had to start this hat. So again, I'm using leftover yarn. I have lots of leftover black yarn because I love to use black. And this is, I think, from the Jazz series. I think this is part of some socks where I used 3 different colors. But anyway, I thought it's a perfect color to knit skeletons. It's not a pure gray, but it's different. It's several light grays with a tiny bit of beige in between. I thought these are quite bony colors and also good colors for the little ghosts that sit in between the skeletons. So this is the little skeleton Halloween hat. I'm using my Chaogu needles again. So these are the longer tips out of the mini set, and it's the longest cable in the set. Or was it a cable that I bought extra? Don't know. But it looks tiny because the needle is fairly small. It's supposed to fit an adult head, but it's also tiny needles. So I usually go down needle size for color work because I tend to knit color work really loosely. But like for the Gnome Pullover, I'm using a 4mm needle for the sock yarn. And for these socks, I'm using a 2.5mm needle because I usually knit socks with a 2.75 needle. And for a hat, I would usually go to like a 3mm needle, but I didn't have the needle size available or something. But I thought I'll just do an experiment, and I'm now knitting on a 2.25 needle for this. And I just realized that for the mittens, this is another color work project, I'm using the 2.0mm needle because that had so many stitches. So it's quite interesting to have all those color work projects with different needle sizes. And maybe I should sit down someday and compare them. Yeah, that'd be quite fun. So that's the Halloween hat with skeletons. If you like the pattern, check it out this month so you can get it at a cheaper price. So these were all my new cast-ons. Yeah, now all the other projects you've seen before. But as we were talking about color work projects, I'm going to show you the Gnome Pullover. I think I knit another 5 rounds or something, but there's still another 5 to go, something like that. So it's not a big difference to last week, but maybe you can see that the hats have grown a little bit. With the knitted gnomes, you can either have the hats sort of like this, or you can stuff them completely so they always stand up. If you don't stuff them completely, you can still, you have the choice between standing and flipping over. But with the pullover and also the hat, I don't know about the mittens, but you have this one has a hat that folds over, and so like this is the tip of this hat, and then I'm going to knit the sort of the bend, whereas this one is one of those that are stuffed to the top, and this just stands up the whole time. And I love the way there are both hats in the gnomes in the pullover. So lots and lots of color work projects at the moment. This is the rest of the pullover. Can't wait to get the color work done. Now, what's next? I continue knitting on the square that I'm knitting for my sister's blanket. This is one of the mindless knitting projects when I'm watching a more interesting film or when I have some interesting conversations. Interestingly, it looks a bit blue on screen, but it's really just different shades of grey and a bit of white. Yep, just some simple knitting with the rainforest color, and this was another leftover dark grey yarn. Then I continued knitting on one of my shawls, not the other one. So I did not knit on the Chevrione shawl, but I finished the color work section on this modular shawl designed by Romy Hill. It's her High Sierra shawl, and it's part of a craftsy class. And yeah, so last time I showed it, I think I was still knitting the lace pattern. That's finished now. It's a bit difficult to show. And I've also added some of the stripes. And again, I'm going to knit, so I'll have 4 black stripes on this side, which will make this 8 stripes, which is sort of the same thing that happened here. So there are 4 stripes here and 4 stripes here, but together they're 8 stripes. Yeah, and once I finish those 4 black stripes on this side, there will be 1 more lace pattern on this side, and then I'm getting to the last part of the shawl. So really enjoy that. It's a beautiful soft wool and silk yarn, so that's great to knit on. And then I'm coming to my only crochet project at the moment. Yep, I think this is the only one. This is the Talavera Blanket, a pattern by Simply Crochet magazine. And I started crocheting the little like flower buds onto the stems that I crocheted before. So I'd done those sort of flower stems, and these are the first flower buds. So every other stem has this light pink bud. Then there was another round in white. So this stem got longer, and I've started the next round, which is the dark pink. And so this is the next sort of flower bud in the pink, and then after that there'll be another white round, and then those flowers will be completely done. And then I will think about finishing the blanket. The next bit will be with the 2 blue colors, and that kind of pattern is, I think they're going to repeat it 3 times, and I will maybe just do it once and then go straight to the last couple of rounds that have a sort of nice edge. The blanket now measures more than 1 meter in length. So this side is more than 1 meter, so I think it's a good size to be a baby blanket. And if I did the whole pattern, I think it would just be too big for a baby blanket, and I don't really need it for myself. So that's what I'm thinking at the moment. But first I have to finish the pink round and then the other white round, and then I can check out the pattern and make a decision which part to do next. And the last project I'm going to show you is the square that I'm knitting out of some more leftover yarn. That's what I knit the theatre costume out of, and I just added some more rounds to that very simple square that's going to be donated and then made into little blankets. So that's some more simple knitting that I can just do while I'm talking or watching something interesting. So the color work projects are not for watching interesting movies, and even with the conversations I have to be careful. If I concentrate too much on the conversation, the color work gets wrong, or if I concentrate on the color work too much, I'm not listening to whoever I'm with. So it's good to have those easy projects for those situations, and then when I'm by myself and I can concentrate or just listen to an audiobook or something where I don't have to look, I can do my fantastic color work projects. So that was everything I knit and crocheted last week. I hope you enjoyed the episode, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!